All right, I will take over and you can put your sources in the chat.
Ting Ting, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I would like to know more about the main purpose of the 3 minutes presentation and what's the criteria for judging?
For the 3-minute thesis, I'll be
Yeah.
going into that.
Okay, yeah.
So before I start, I've put a couple of files in the content. So if you go down in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you see 3 dots there. Click on the 3 dots and you'll see content. Click on content. And there are 2 files there. One is the 3-minute thesis outline and one is 3-minute thesis guidance. Open both of those up. We're going to start with the guidance, which will answer Ting Ying's question, give that overview of what it is about. And then the outline is going to set us up for you to begin thinking about how you're going to write your 3-minute thesis, because I did want to spend some time on that tonight, so you leave with a consumable. Ting Ying?
Can I ask another question?
You bet.
Yeah, my research is about the bioinformatics. It needs people to have biology background to better understand the research. So I think it's not easy to explain everything in 3 minutes. So do you have any suggestions about?
Yeah, we'll go through that. I will make my suggestions because there are 3-minute theses done on technical topics. And so it's a matter of thinking about what the more general applications are for that. So if you've got the guidance open first, I'll go over the first question that you were asking. So a 3-minute thesis is 3 minutes long. It can't be any longer than that or they will disqualify you. And so you do need to have it down to just 3 minutes. Like any kind of writing or speech making, it will have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. 3 minutes is not very much time. It's a very short speech. And so what I suggest is that the introduction is about 30 seconds, which means about 40 words. So the introduction will be a very short paragraph. The body, I would suggest, should be about 1 minute and 45 seconds, which means about 150 words, which is enough for 2 or 3 paragraphs. And then the conclusion, it will be 45 seconds or about 60 words. So it'll be a longer paragraph than your introduction was. And you can see on that the kinds of things that are going to go into the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. We'll come back to that when we go into the outline document to think about how to write yours in an accessible way. Connected to the speech, there will also be a PowerPoint that will be showing the whole time that you are giving the speech. You need to think of that PowerPoint not in the way that we normally do PowerPoints. Ting Ting, is your hand still up or did you have a different question?
No, sorry.
Okay. And so the PowerPoint, you don't want to be, normally when we do PowerPoints, it's lots of words and it's communicating an idea and you only have one, you try and put your entire thesis summary on there, and that's not what it should be. If you tried to do that, it would be, number one, be too many words for people to actually read, but also it would distract from your speech. Instead, you want to think of it as a supplement to your speech, something that can create the mood. And so think in terms of visuals rather than words for that PowerPoint. And we'll come back to that a little bit later. I've got some suggestions on the presentation. They suggest that you don't try to extemporize with just a general outline. They actually recommend that you write the those 250 words out in advance so that you can really polish them and then practice it like 50 times, after which you'll have it in your head. And if you mess up a few words, that's fine. But the trick with it is that you need to make sure that it's in your voice. And that's what Rebecca was talking about, that you don't want to use AI to write this because it'll end up being in this computer, just vanilla, bland voice. It won't be your voice. But it's also a different voice than many people use in their academic writing. I really value my voice, and so it is very rare that I don't write using my voice. The exceptions that I can think of were like when I helped run the university's NETCHI accreditation a few years ago, and I was the co-author of the report for that. And because I mean, I wasn't even credited with the writing, I was writing for the university. And in that context, I did not use my voice, but almost always I try to use my voice. But in this instance, you really have got to use your voice, because if you try to memorize this academic voice that you might normally use for your papers, presenting it is going to be really boring. You can't put your passion into words that are, I don't know, what academic writing is just like, it's supposed to be unbiased or something, but it has this tone to it which is very high and mighty, and giving a high and mighty speech just doesn't work. This speech has got to be you and your love for your topic. So Rebecca said, don't write your normal word summary as if you're writing to your mom. I would actually, for this speech, I would recommend writing it for your mom. And you've got Thanksgiving coming up, so you can practice giving it to your mom just to make sure she understands. The people that are going to be listening to it, there'll be all sorts of topics. So the judges are absolutely not going to be experts in your field. They will be intelligent people, but they would be totally uninformed on your topic. And so thinking about your mom and how you explain it to your mom really will be a good guide for that. And also, if you think about, for me, the benefit of doing this, I guess, point of clarification, this totally was invented after I was in graduate school, it didn't exist, but I think it's a fantastic idea because it will prepare you to be able to talk about your research when you go in the job market. This speech is basically your elevator speech that you can give to the people who are interviewing you for the job. They are not going to be experts in whatever it is that you're researching. They'll be intelligent but uninformed people. And so the ability to talk about your research clearly in 3 minutes is a really, really valuable skill. So I really encourage you to do this. So the suggestion I saw is that you should practice it 50 times. And by the time you've practiced it 50 times, you will have edited it so that it flows smoothly and you'll pretty much have it memorized. Other advice that we get is that you want to be sure to speak slowly, especially if we're nervous. We tend to speed up and we talk too fast, and it's hard for people to really follow where we're going. And breathe deeply. One recommendation that I read is that before you begin, you just close your eyes and breathe deep. The 3-minute timer does not start until you begin speaking. And so by breathing deeply, you'll get your mind just clear, open your eyes, and then begin the presentation. And you won't be so nervous. And if you can keep yourself speaking slowly, you'll be able to just be calmer and communicate more clearly to your audience. And I strongly recommend, after you've got that memorized, think about this is in your voice. Think about what it is that makes you passionate about this research. You've invested a whole ton of time in that. There is something that you care about that, and you need to express that passion and excitement through your voice, through your mannerisms, through the energy that you give in just in your presence, that needs to be there in order to keep people hooked in the speech. I've got a list of suggestions for things to think about. Once you've got it learned, you can pause at key moments to give your audience time to think about the major points. You can change your speed, go slower at some times to emphasize, go speed up when it's something really important. You can change your volume, speak louder to emphasize or quieter to make people stop and, oh, I need to focus more. Be careful with your hands so they're not flying all over. You can use them to emphasize or to tell part of the story that you're in there. Think about how your hands can reinforce the words. I think you're going to be doing this initially as a recording, but I think the competition occurs in person, right? If you make it to the competition. So if you make it to the competition, be careful and don't pace. If you step, the step should be connected to the words, which means if you're going to a new idea, it's good to step at that point, but limit how much you walk on the stage. Be sure to smile, make eye contact. Don't be looking at one person the whole time. Move your eyes around the room so that everyone feels included in the speech. Any more questions about what it is, the 3-minute thesis? All right.
Yeah, one more question.
Yep.
Sorry. And is it better to use easy understand word instead of the terms?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay, great.
Rebecca mentioned that you really should not be using jargon. You want to translate it into words, like I said, that your mom would understand or that your best friend would understand. Someone that's not in your field, you're going to be translating it, and it's going to feel weird because at this point you're a subject matter expert on it, and so you know just the right way to say things. But the people who are listening to this, they don't know just the right way, and it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. And so instead of thinking about what's the right way to say it, you're going to be thinking about what's the clear way to say it. And that means translating it into simpler words.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, so keep hold of, just download that guidance and save that so you can go back, and it gives a whole list of things to think about as you're writing each of the sections. But tonight we're going to focus on the document that's the 3-minute thesis outline. And I'm not going to write in order. Whenever I give my talks to the students about how to write, I'm the writing director, that's why I'm here, the university's writing director. I always give my students permission that you do not have to begin at the beginning and go to the middle and then the end. You actually will do a better job. It'll be way more efficient if you start in the middle and then go back to the introduction and then do the conclusion. And so in this outline, I have you starting with the body. Now remember, this will be about a minute 45 or 150 words. Tonight, we don't have time for you to write those 150 words, but I want you, you've got this document open on your computer, I hope. So begin writing, first of all, one sentence. What do you want your audience to take away from your 3-minute thesis? What is the point of your thesis? Have you got that written? Sorta? So as we go through this, I'm going to narrate a research project that I'm working on right now. I'm looking at how communities get built, what factors make communities stronger. And so I've been doing a series of case studies on organizations in the New Haven area and doing interviews with people in those different organizations. And so the question I had coming into it, there was a sociologist over 100 years ago who talked about what makes a community strong is homogeneity, that you have to have common values or it'll be weak. And so he was talking at a time when cities were getting bigger, and his perspective was that cities can't be strong. You need to have small rural towns to be strong, where that's where the strong community is. And so the question I was coming to the research was, is that true? Can you have a strong community in a really diverse inner city? That was my question. And so if I were to think about what's the point of this research project, I would say that if I were to write like a thesis statement, it is that diverse inner city communities can develop strong communities if they value diversity and work to make the community strong, something along those lines. All right, so what part of your research does the best job of conveying that point? And Rebecca talked to this when she was talking about the summary, the normal English. I don't know why I can't remember the name of it, but the normal person summary is that you can't talk about every aspect of your research. You need to figure out one key point that that you'll use as an example, basically, of the kinds of evidence that you have for the thesis. So for me, I've been doing this series of case studies. I would choose one of those case studies to talk about. And I think I would, when I was driving home tonight, I was thinking I probably would make sense. I used Books and Company was a small local bookstore on Whitney Avenue. And that was one of the case studies. And we got really good positive feedback on it. So I think that is the instance that I would use. So can the two of you talk about what your thesis statement is? What is the point that you're trying to make? And can you think about what part of the research you can focus on that will do the best job of conveying that point?
I could go first.
Okay.
So I am in my almost final semester of the doctorate program in social work. So we have a research capstone project, and mine is on a quantitative research study with school social workers in one urban district. And I'm trying to find out if it's systemic, institutional, or personal barriers that affect their ability to provide counseling services to students. So I surveyed 42 school social workers in one district, and my results showed that it was systemic, followed by personal, then followed by institutional, and that's right now I'm creating the charts and the graphs for my data at the moment. But that's what my research right now is about.
So you're not, for the 3-minute thesis, you're not going to use all your charts and graphs.
Right. Yep.
Instead, you're going to focus on the systemic and talk about what you mean by that, and maybe talk about a particular school or a particular social worker that you interviewed, and what happens in that school where that social worker is. The goal here is you're telling a story, and that's why it's really important to be very focused. It obviously will just be an example of your evidence, but it will be more persuasive in the context of a public speech. So Ting Ting, you said yours is, was it biology?
Yes. Yeah, my research is about how to about the strategy to accurate detection of DNA variants at the single cell level. I built a new pipeline to to detect the violence through multiple exist tools, and I improve the pipeline, and I combine the multiple algorithms to get the more higher higher performance, accuracy.
Awesome. So you're going to be talking about the story you tell is the creation of this device, right?
Yes.
All right.
So
So then we skip to the introduction. Obviously, you're going to be expanding on the body a lot, but you're going to expand on it from this perspective of the story. Do you don't both feel comfortable being able to do that?
I think so.
Yeah, and Ting Ting, the language you used was not too technical. It made perfectly sense. And actually, potentially, the PowerPoint slide behind you could be a visual of the device that you're creating.
yes, I think I will I will show maybe the pipeline about the process of the about the process, and about the main strategy about the pipeline. Yes.
That'll be great. That'll be great. All right, so now that we know where you're going, we can actually create an introduction that leads to that. And so the first question I had there is, what compelling story, question, or starting statistic would immediately capture the audience attention? So they call this the hook in a speech. In the guidance, I give some examples of hooks. It could be a story, it could be a question, it could be a statistic. It could, some of the stuff I was talking about asked the audience to actually do something that was connected to the research question, or potentially you could state something unusual, interesting, thought-provoking. This is something that it takes time to figure out what you're trying to find a common place between you and your audience. And so you want you just have to find something that they already care about, that they already know about, that connects to your topic. Does that make sense? So we have the intuition, we're taught in our writing classes, and I guess speech making classes as well, that it always begins broad. But the reason it begins broad is because it has to start in a common ground. You've only got 3 minutes to convey the message of your thesis. That's a lot of new information. And so this introduction is just key to catching their attention, but also pulling them in so that they care about what you're going to be saying. Does that make sense? So just do some brainstorming. It'll be normally connected to whatever problem it is that so normally a thesis, there is a research question or a problem that you're trying to solve. And so that hook needs to connect to whatever that question is that you have, and you need to say what that question or problem is in the introduction. Do you want to take a minute and brainstorm, or do you want, is that that is a problem to do in a short time? Should we just pass on that and you can come back to that?
Yeah, you might also think about what need is your research trying to answer.
Yeah. So my project on community, I actually started before COVID, but I think what I would start with is with the Surgeon General declaring it loneliness a health emergency, right? And that would be, and I could talk about the statistics of, what percent of Americans feel lonely or isolated or whatever. And then I would transition into, it's not just a COVID problem. It's something that scholars have been talking about for hundreds of years, right? So it could be a statistic. Ting Ting, what is the problem that led you to be interested in this research?
Because my bachelor major is computer science, and my husband work in the biology field, and I think in the biology field they do not use too much computer science related technologies to help them to do some maybe the analysis. So I think it's useful for them to get more details about the computer science, and I would like to help my husband to do more analysis and research more deeper research deeper. Yes, and maybe more visible to see maybe the dashboard to easier understand the results to others.
Awesome. Allison, what motivated you?
I'm going to try really hard to get it to 30 seconds, but I had it all in my head too, and it wasn't 30 seconds. But what, not at all. So I really wanted to do this research study because I was, when I was a professor a couple years ago, starting out, I assigned a paper where I wanted the students to research about social work burnout and specifically to urban environments. And the research was so limited. It was always combined with rural and suburb. And I'm like, no, that doesn't show the systemic issues faced in urban populations that we're facing. Because I am a full-time school social worker in an urban school. I'm a part-time professor at Southern. And so I found that was just, it was crazy to me, such a concern. And so I went back to get my doctorate to learn how to actually research and be able to perform different studies to then have this part of a research base. So now moving forward, if I assign that paper, they'll be using my name and my research to finally answer some of that that's been missing. And it's concerning to be combined with rural and suburb and having those demographics all combined. So I'm going to try to get that into 30 seconds.
Mhm.
Try really hard.
So skip down to the bottom question for the introduction, and that is, why is your topic interesting and exciting to an average person? So this is a question. When I mention I competed in speech and debate in high school and college? That's why I feel comfortable talking to you about this. When I was in high school, the team that I was on was a nationally competitive team, but there was a prep school, Marquette High School in Michigan, that always won these speech competitions, and so my coach had been to all of these competitions, and what he realized that they were doing that no one else was doing was at the end of the introduction, they would always have a statement of why this is an interesting topic to discuss, why this question really should be answered. And if you think about it, it totally makes sense to have it there, because that's the hook, right? That's why I'm going to pay attention to you and really listen to what you have to say in answering your research question. And so that's going to be a really crucial question for you to have in the introduction. And it's more important to be thinking about what is interesting for the average person rather than maybe for you, Ting Ting, you and your husband, or Allison, you and your high school. But think about, why does it matter that that this process can be developed, or that we understand whether it's systemic problems that lead to it. Why, not just you as an educator, why would other people care? What's going to be the impact? And we'll come back to that in the conclusion. Does that make sense? All right, so let's go to, we've done the body, we've done the introduction. Let's go to the conclusion. You've only got 45 seconds. It really is not very long. but it's really crucial. A lot of times when students are writing conclusions, it's sort of, oh, I've already said everything. What's the point of saying it all again? But the conclusion is just key for pulling it all together. So if you think that hook, I'm a crafter, and so I'm thinking this is like making a scarf or something, and you need to pull it together at the end so that it actually a hat so that it fits on your head. And so you're going to briefly summarize your findings, just so the audience is really clear what the point is that you made in the thesis. But then you're going to come back to that question of interesting, exciting, and broaden it just a bit. Instead of just interesting, exciting, why is it important? What's going to be the impact on the world? You should have this vision for what the future looks like that's different because of what you found in your research. Allison, I have the feeling you have a vision for that, yes? What is it?
My vision is that this can be something that our future social workers in the department can utilize when they're completing assignments, writing papers. I want this to be a part of academia that we can finally share these voices in urban school districts for the social workers, for the students. This can help policy changes and how we're funding our school systems, what's actually needed. So we actually hear from the people on the ground working, and not making assumptions.
Well, I would jump ahead to the last bit.
Yep.
You really care about the social workers. The rest of us care about our kids.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
And so how does this make a difference for our kids?
Yep.
Ting Ting, what are you thinking? What's your vision for the future?
Yeah, I think it will help doctors or researchers to diagnose some genetic diseases.
So you might want to think of a specific example. Actually, that could be your hook of some kind of disease that they haven't figured out a solution to, and then you come back to it, that if you actually combined the computer work with the biology, that there are a whole host of problems that potentially could be solved. Something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last thing I've got on the page is how does that connect back to your hook? And again, this is the permission. You don't have to write in all order. You can, if you've got that conclusion really good, you can figure out a hook that fits with the conclusion or go back and forth. It can be iterative, figuring out how to polish it. But if you can make that connection between the hook and then the very last sentence, it makes the speech a thing of beauty. Any questions?
So I just wanted to throw in that I think addressing the who is going to be affected by this might be a good one as well. So like Allison, you were talking when you first described it about the fact that a lot of research has been done on rural schools and suburban schools, but not very much in urban schools. And yet the majority of our population is urban.
Right.
So who is this going to affect? Is it a big part of the population? Is it a very specific population that really needs this? Who's the recipient of the benefits of your work?
Thank you. That's really helpful. Thank you.
So going forward, you've got to feel for what needs to go into the draft, right? It's not going to be a full 2 pages. It will maybe go on to a second page, and that's it. And then start practicing giving it. And you'll edit it probably every time you give it, you'll edit it slightly. I would highly recommend going to CASAS. You guys, our grad students don't take advantage of the resources. So CASAS is the Center for Academic
Success and Accessibility Services.
There we go. It's where our tutors are. And frequently our graduate students just figure, oh, the tutors are all undergraduates and they tutor undergraduates, but we have specific graduate students, and we have someone who actually has a terminal degree in writing as writing tutors for the graduate students. So I highly recommend that you use CASAS to help edit this. And just to get suggestions on how to make it clear. To set up an appointment for CASAS, you go to the MySCSU app page, and there's an icon there for Navigate. If you click on Navigate, it'll open up for you the options for CASAS, and the writing tutor will be one of the options in CASAS, and you can specify that you want one of the graduate writing tutors that can help you. Frequently, when you write this, it'll be more than, my expectation is that it'll be more than 250 words when you first get it. If it's 350 or 400 words, it really is possible to just, by making the words more efficient, cut out about a third of the words that, when you're writing, I always encourage, don't be too conscious of yourself. Get all of the ideas out first, and then you can go in and just get rid of the unimportant words. It will still be in your voice, but you really can cut it down by a third just by being more efficient about what it is. So go to CASAS first, and then once you get it polished after going to CASAS, then I would start practicing giving it to friends and family. And every time you give it, you'll realize something you want to change, but also you'll be able to watch their faces and see when you're losing them, so that you can figure out what isn't clear and what you need to, what kind of language would help make it clear. Ting Ting, do you have a question?
Yeah, I would like to know more about the cases. It's a website.
It's one of the offices. It's in the library on the 3rd floor of the library. They have the tutors are in person, but actually the graduate writing tutors are all remote, and so you can meet with them in the evening when it's a good time for you to and so you'll share your paper with them, and they will make comments for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You can, I mean, obviously it's not just there for the 3-minute thesis. You can use it for all of your writing, and I strongly encourage you to do that. There's a limited number of them, and so you actually can, if you get a good relationship with one of them, they will learn to know who you are and what your writing style is, what your issues are, what you're working on, and they can turn into not just a tutor, but actually a writing coach for you, which that's just wonderful support to have. So please, please, please take advantage. They get really underused. Any other questions? Do you feel confident going forward?
To present tomorrow? No, but definitely.
No, it's not supposed to be tomorrow. You've got time. I mean, do you feel confident between now
Definitely.
and whenever it's due? I don't know when it's even
Yeah,
due.
I feel more excited actually to get going and move on with this in a way that really compels my story and gets everybody excited to continue even doing research like this. So yeah. When you talked about the audience, I guess that was the main thing that stuck with me too, is just to not make any assumptions with the language and make sure I can explain it to a general audience. So that's something I will make sure I keep working on too.
it's sort of frustrating because as a graduate student, you're working so hard to be taken seriously and sound like a professional. And I'm telling you, no, just drop that all.
Yeah.
But the reality is that most of the stuff that you do in the world is not going to be a professional audience.
It's true. But I'm glad you said that because that's definitely, yeah, that was an eye opener too.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just put in the chat a link to APA's page on bias-free language. That's a useful site for making sure that you're not, adding some spin to your wording that you don't mean. But at the same time, don't use overly academic language. You want to still do, you want to eliminate as much as possible the bias in your language, but you don't want to make it sound, too, too scholarly.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that scholars do is you've been told forever you should not use the word I in your writing. I'd use the word I in my writing. But the way that you get yourself out of the sentence is by using passive voice. And that's just bad writing. When I'm doing my spiel on how to write clearly, I always talk about you need to make sure every sentence has an actor and an action. And the way English is written, the actor ought to be the subject of the sentence and the action ought to be the verb. And inevitably in academic writing, that's not the case, which means the verb is almost always is, right? And the action's hidden in nominalized words, and some if you use passive voice, sometimes the actor isn't even in the sentence. So yeah. You, especially in this context, please use I if you're the one doing it. You're the one that's done this research, so you deserve to be in the talk.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there are things like, describe things in terms of impact. So one of the examples that I keep running across is like, don't talk about food insecurity. It's a very, academic term. Talk about people being hungry. Kids not having enough to eat, something like that. That's
they're actors, and being hungry is the action, right?
Yeah.
So I'm putting my email in the chat. If you would like to have, once you get this written where you're comfortable sharing it publicly, we can set up in a meeting and I can talk to you about what you're doing and potentially you could practice it for me. I like working with students, so I don't have a problem with it. Any other questions?
Thank you so much. Appreciate this a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Thank you.
It really is an amazing opportunity, and it really will help you professionally to be able to explain your research in normal words.
I look forward to it. I'm also applying to be a full-time professor, so I know it will help me for sure. So.
Oh, I can't tell you how much students love to have you share research in class.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Nice to meet you.
Yep, good to meet you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.